Good morning and welcome to BoPS Back Office Planning Systems Beta Show and Tell number 2, Phase 3. Apologies for earlier technical issues that we had. This session will be recorded for the record. Welcome all, and I'll pass you over now to our excellent product owners, Tom Buttrick and Peter Forrest. Over to you, Tom.
You're on mute, Tom.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you everyone for your patience with the issues we've been having this morning. Welcome to the second show and tell of this next phase of product development for BoPS, the back office planning system for local planning authorities. As Miguel says, this meeting is being recorded and we will post it to YouTube with no gremlins in due course with our other previous show and tells. For those who don't know, my name's Tom Buttrick and I'm here today with Peter Forrest and the Unboxed team, and Peter and I are the two product owners for BoPS here at Southwark Council, where we've been working diligently with our partner boroughs, hi guys, and our delivery partner Unboxed to develop the BoPS tool. Next slide, please. For those who don't know BoPS, it's a new software application that's designed by and for local planning authorities to process planning applications in a more efficient and intuitive way. So planning authorities can make decisions quicker and ultimately use less resources. The users of BoPS are planning officers who process planning applications and the planning managers who sign off the decision. But ultimately, it's also the applicants who want to build their homes and businesses sooner. Next slide, please. So since we last saw you, what have we been up to? Well, we've been listening to the Queen's speech and its focus on modernising the planning system. Hint, it's going to be digital and therefore BoPS is well aligned for that. We started the next phase of BoPS development, which is funded by MHCLG's CFM model. And we completed our first sprint a couple of weeks ago. Now, that first sprint was undertaken during the pre-election period for the London mayoral election, so we couldn't publicise that, but we have recorded the show and tell, and we will be posting that onto our YouTube channel, again, with no gremlins. We realised that you wouldn't have seen the work we did in the first sprint, so we will touch on that this time round to set the context for this sprint, Sprint 2's work. Also, what else have we been doing? We are moving at great speed now towards the live beta testing of the BoPS MVP for lawful development certificates. And we'll be working with our colleagues in the RIPA project, Reducing Invalid Planning Applications, to process real live lawful development certificate application using both tools. And that's colleagues in Lambeth, Buckinghamshire and Southwark. So we're really looking forward to that, and that will be taking place very shortly in the near future. So next slide, please. As I said, this is sprint 2 of 6 sprints, and the main focus of this work is obviously the development of the MVP to process household or planning applications. As I said, it's the lawful development certificate MVP testing and a wider program of work where we're looking at how we can take the product forward to market. Next slide, please. We obviously want your questions, so do jump on this link here. If a colleague can just post that in the chat, I'll be really appreciate that right now, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the session. So yeah, do pop them in there. Any questions, that will be great. Thank you. Next slide, please. So what have we been doing this sprint? I'm going to hand over to Peter. Hi, Peter. And Pete's going to get on, let you know on what we've been doing. Peter, over to you.
Cheers, Tom. Okay, Melissa, next slide, please. So this sprint has really been looking at how an applicant can make changes as requested by an officer of them. These might include a change to the application description or to replace a document that had incorrect or missing information, or a missing document and needs to be uploaded for the first time. It also covers how we might make a change to a red line, perhaps if it, for example, it was missing a drop curb, and also how we can handle additional payments or refunding payments that have been incorrect. Okay, next slide. So the focus, as we say, is very much around validation at the moment. The strategy is that Ripper and BoPS can completely handle the validation process, and therefore we know that all applications that we then need to put into any legacy systems are already valid through the use of Ripper BoPS. So with BoPS, a case officer can request a change to the application, and that notification would go out via email with a unique link to the applicant. The applicant clicks on the link, uploads the documents or confirms the information, such as their agreement with the change description, and the case officer can automatically handle that document within BoPS. And this is a really big win compared to having to email applicants and then keep abreast of all of the messages that have been sent out and have I heard back from them and so on and so forth. Okay, next slide. So Sprint 2, we are continuing our work on validation, and that focus has been around requests for change. So this opens up a new dimension for us. This means that we have now a front end for BoPS applicants, and up until now, Ripper had provided only the only interface with applicants. So this is a change. It may be a temporary change as Ripper's microservices come online in the future, but for now this allows BoPS to liaise directly with the applicant and the applicant to submit documents and updates directly to the officer using BoPS. Design work is around our redline editing tool, but a lot of work now is taking place around considerations. This has the potential to move BoPS from being a tool that just kind of tracks the milestones that a project goes through, a case goes through. So the officer sort of saying, have the neighbours been notified? Have I got all the consultations back? And it switches it to topics based. So how have I... Is flood risk a significant negative impact on this application? And have I heard back from the consultee there? How has the applicant mitigated it? Am I in a position to remove that as a significant negative impact and now make my recommendation? To support that, we're drafting up a user guide so that case officers can do their testing of the LDC system, both within BoPS, but then also within the legacy systems like Uniform, to make sure that we've got that completely covered until there's a full switch over. And we're really pleased to say that Southwark Finance have approved the trial of GovPay in the LDC MVP. So that's a great breakthrough. The government team were really supportive, answering loads of questions and helping us. And we're really looking forward to setting that up very soon. Okay, next slide. So at this point, I shall hand over.
Thanks, Peter. So I'm Melissa. I'm one of the developers on the project, and I'm going to take you through what we've been up to. So up until this point, the BoPS was an application for planning officers to do all of their work regarding managing a planning application. And what we've done on this sprint is create a new web app, which is for applicants instead of just planning officers, so that when you create a change request within your BoPS app as a planning officer, you can then send it directly to the applicant. And instead of having to manage things via email, the applicant can actually be taken to its own app that is separate from BoPS but speaks to BoPS to be able to reply to the requests. I'm going to show you this in action in a moment. This wouldn't be possible, of course, if we had an integrated email services. So we're using Notify to send an email to the applicant from within the BoPS app. So that was the other piece of work that we've done. Not only have we created a whole new application, a whole new web app for applicants, we have also integrated email with the BoPS application, the planning officer view. Now let's illustrate this with a live demo. So I'm going to go over to this link. And right now I've got my planning officer hat on, and I'm going to invalidate this application to be able to create a new change request. Now I'm going to submit a change request for a new application description. You can see previously it said add a chimney stack, but I'm saying actually you want to add a Roman theater. Okay. I'm going to send it. You can see here that you have all the planning application details. Let's send it over. And now here the applicant will have 15 days to respond. And note these are business days. So we are not counting weekends. We're counting only business days. And the status is open. I can also click on it and see what was the previous description and the suggested description. Okay, Now I'm going to take off my planning officer hat and I'm going to put my applicant hat because I am the applicant on here. So I should have received an email asking me to confirm this change. Let's refresh our email. And lo and behold, the back office planning system has emailed me. And here I can see that I have until the 3rd of June to reply to this. And I can see that this is the planning officer on my planning application. Now I'm going to grab this link. I'm going to change it to HTTP because it's a new app. And here you can see our new web app. So this is what someone that's applied will see when they get asked for a description change. Here again is the expiry date, and here is the application description. I'm going to click on it, and they're asking me to add a Roman theater. Do I agree with this? No, not really. That's not correct. I'm going to try and submit it. But what happens is that you cannot disagree unless you put in a reason. This is because we're trying to facilitate the conversation between planning officer and between the users. So if you are disagreeing, you need to suggest a new description. And actually, I want to add 2 Roman theaters. And I want to build them. I don't want to add them. So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to submit it. Cool. Now I can see this has been complete. And I'm going to take off my hat of an applicant, and I'm going to put my planning officer hat back on. So if we refresh our application, we can see, ooh, this says rejected. It's been closed. And now if I click on it, why has he rejected this? So I can see the previous description, the suggested one, and why the applicant has disagreed. They want to build 2 Roman theaters. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to create a new change request to be approved. So let's do that. Let's send it very quickly. And again, go over to my email. New email is on there, but actually I'm still logged in as an applicant here. So I can just refresh. And here it is, the new request. Let's click on it. This time I'm happy with it. Yes, let's agree with the change. Okay, I've completed it. Take this hat off, back into planning officer, refresh this page, and there we go, this has been approved. So I can see that the description has been approved, and what happens automatically is that now the application description has been updated. So you can now build 2 Roman theaters. And this is essentially what we've been up to this sprint. Does anyone in the development team want to supplement with anything that I forgot? Happy? Okay, cool. Let's go back to our show and tell, and I will hand over to one of our designers, Tom Gaylor.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So yes, one of the other aspects of validation is that the planning officer needs to ensure that the red line boundary that's been provided is correct. And if it is incorrect, we're offering the planning officer the opportunity to provide a corrected red line boundary change. So as Peter mentioned, an example might be that a drop curb has not been included within the red line boundary and is required as part of the works. So the planning officer can see the proposed red line boundary, and on top of this, they can then draw the new, the proposed applicant boundary. They can see that, and they can draw their own new proposed one, which includes any extra work and is correct. They also need to provide a reason for this work, for this change to the red line boundary. Once they've added the drawing, they provided their reason, text description of their reason, they can send that, and that is passed to the applicant. Next slide, please, Melissa. And from the applicant side, they receive their request for change, and it would look very much like the description change. They can see their original proposed red line boundary, and they can see what the planning officer is proposing as a change to that red line boundary. Again, they have the option to accept that, in which case it will be automatically updated, or they can reject it. And again, they will provide their reason for rejection to facilitate this conversation in between the applicant and the planning officer. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to Ali, who will talk about considerations.
Great, thank you, Tom. So I'm Ali, I'm the other designer on the project. So during the sprint, we've also been looking at what we're calling Unboxed considerations. So as Peter described, that's everything that a planning officer has to consider before determining an application. So an example of this might be a constraint on a proposal, which could be a TPO. and then the planning officer might have to consult with the tree officer, and then they might also add a tree condition. So it's really like this flow of data and this glue that kind of sticks the proposal or the process together. So we're looking at how we can think about our planning application process slightly differently. Instead of actions, it's more of this flow of information. So this sprint, we've been preparing for a workshop that we're going to be running with planning officers to think about this process and to pick it apart in a bit more detail. Excited to share that work with you next sprint in a bit more detail. I'm now going to pass over to Tom at Southwark.
Thank you, Ali. Firstly, thank you to the development team there for demoing and showing their work there. I think it's really interesting. As a case officer who's processed many a planning application in my time, having the ability to send and receive data to an applicant as a case officer is really important, and to streamline that process is a real step. And actually, as Pete kind of mentioned, that functionality isn't just with the applicant, it's with a consultee, and it's with any other stakeholders. So once we've kind of refined that functionality, we'll be using it for all those different purposes, and it's really great to see that kind of at that first go, and we're really excited to then progress that, moving that forward. Also, as I touched on earlier, we have the BoPS LDC MVP, and as we mentioned, we're working on that now to get to live testing, and this is a real focus over the next few weeks, working with colleagues in the Ripper project across Lambeth and Buckinghamshire, and yeah, that's going to be a real focus for moving forward. As Pete touched on, we've got the GovPay pilot approved, and the user guide is well on the way to support the LDC testing work. Next slide, please. So yeah, next sprint 3, we're continuing this work on these this validation / request for changes, and we've demoed the kind of a red line and a change in description. But as we know, there's always changes to planning drawings. There's always new PDFs. Through negotiation, the scheme may evolve. Wall heights of walls may change. Elevations change, etc. So we need to receive those updated files, and sometimes we might need new files as well. So we'll be working on that, and we'll be really excited to demo that in the next show and tell. Now that we've got GovPay approved, we're going to be looking at the integration of that within BoPS. As Ali just touched on, we've got the considerations workshop, which is really interesting around how a case officer, as Ali said, interprets the application when they first see it, and what are the issues, and how do we assist the case officer then to actually make a decision as swiftly and as effectively as possible. We've touched on end-to-end user testing and the beta testing, and we're going to be also looking at how we display historic planning data relating to a site in BoPS, and we're going to be looking at that as well. Next slide, please. So for those who haven't been involved, do get involved, do contact us. We love to hear from new planning authorities, from staff. If you want to test the tool, let us know. We're very happy to do demos, and also to really get stuck into some of the beta testing as well. Our contact details are there, so do get in touch, and we look forward to hearing from you. Next slide, please. So thank you, and thank you for your patience this morning. We are going to jump to the questions. So I'm just going to just bring that up, and I'm just going to see if there's any there. Pete, I can't see any at the moment, but no. I don't know if you can. No, so I don't know if, obviously we are no new questions. So I don't know if there's any questions in the room this morning, if they do want to drop them in the chat, or any comments. As I say, we're super excited about this. Actually, what we think is a real kind of milestone around this interface between the applicant and the case officer. So what do you think about that? Any comments? Everyone's been blown away by such a milestone being reached. So without further ado, Pete, what I suggest is we thank everyone for their time. We close the show and tell now, and we look forward to presenting on YouTube in 2 weeks' time successfully the next show and tell, and we'll be posting this and sending it around.
Brilliant.
So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.